Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm here to talk to you about my personal story, which is my mission is now to focus on helping you avoid going through what I had happen to me starting back in 2013. And it's just, as I'm recording today, November of 2019, and it's been a long journey until now I finally am feeling better and going to attempt to train and race next year in Ironman Canada 2020. So I've been interviewed a few times recently about my personal story that I wrote in my book, Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey, and how you can pace the whole you with the holistic method. And I don't know if you follow this podcast, we have a ton of episodes. If you go back when we started Fit, Fat, Fast in 2011, that was kind of the peak of my triathlon running career and endurance athlete. Myself, 2012 was great, and then 2013, downhill spiral starting in March. So I wrote my book, Life is Not a Race. About a year after that happened, I started to write. I blogged a lot about it, probably annoyed people oversharing, but I just felt this need to write about what was happening to me because part of it, I think at the time, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I was suddenly this over fat athlete that looked like they just quit training and racing and sat on the sofa and ate ice cream all day. Well, really, I was low carb athlete. I was metabolically efficient. I was training without sugars and fasted a lot of times, maybe too often, and ate not a lot, but drank a lot of, probably too much again, bulletproof coffee in the mornings and doing what we talk about doing. But I had chronic stress in my life. I was filling my schedule up every day from the time I woke up at way too early of an hour, 3:45, 4 in the morning, so I could check emails before I started a busy day training clients and coaching athletes. And I was training 20 hours myself on top of a busy schedule. So as I always say, more is not better. It's sometimes less is more, and we're all individuals. How much stress you can tolerate is somewhat genetic. You can look at your genetic reports. I will be sharing the holiday specials that Ancestry DNA and 23andMe both have a 2-for-1 deal during the holidays. So you can look at your genetic reports, go to DNA Fit and Dirty Genes book authored Dr. Ben Lynch, and look at his strategy and reports and upload your raw data into these different programs and really get a glimpse of your genetics and how you can change them with your epigenetics, your environment and your genetics combined, how you choose to live life, what supplementation you might need. As I found I needed more glutathione and methyl B complex, and really, as I talk a little more about the mitochondria role in chronic stress, it's not just the HPA axis, the stress response team. I think it's more the mitochondria, the energy production center of our cells, need to be strengthened. They need to be more resilient, and we need to build them up. So we talk a lot more lately about how you can improve your mitochondria function with the right hormetic stressors, the good amount stress, that short bursts and recovery. So doing hot cold therapy, doing fasting, intermittent fasting, doing the infrared sauna, doing HIIT training. It's what the challenge is for us doing Ironman or marathons or long distance cycling and running events, trail running, is that the chronic cardio is not beneficial to our health. And so if you want to train and race in endurance world, we need to work on how to improve our performance, but our longevity. I think we should be a little more concerned about the stress we're putting on our body and concerned about the aging process and improving it. So working on your liver function, reducing those external stressors, your toxins, your chemicals you're surrounded by in the environment, and working on optimizing your liver digestive function with the appropriate steps to improve that part of your life, but really supplementing as you need to boost the mitochondria function, to improve the liver function, get some antioxidants, because we're doing a lot of oxidative stress. So we need antioxidants, we need the B complex, we need glutathione to help support phase 1 to phase 2 detoxification. So there's so much we are needing to do as endurance athletes, as we are often type A to type AAA personalities, and we need to stop, pause, and reset, reboot the system. So we talk a lot about Maffetone. Dr. Maffetone, the 180 miles to age, is a max aerobic function heart rate, and when to train and add HIIT training, when to add more strength training, which I'm a big fan of, is doing more building versus breaking down, especially, as I said, endurance exercise over 45 minutes can cause your cortisol to go up. And if you're already stressed out, overachiever, multitasker, you're probably in that mode of acute phase of HPA axis dysfunction or cortisol dysregulation, and on your way to becoming compensatory phase, and then next phase is exhaustion phase. If you don't work on identifying your external stressors as the way you live your life, the way you deal with stress, but also those hidden internal stressors that we talk about as an FDN practitioner, the functional labs we do to help identify and collect clues towards your contributors to metabolic chaos. So those are those hidden stressors. Stands for hormone imbalances. I stands for immune dysfunction, which is gut health, because your 70% immune system is in your gut wall lining. So we need to focus on improving our gut health, improving the gut wall lining, and getting rid of those irritants to the gut health or the gut wall lining. And then we have our digestion, our detoxification systems, our energy systems, and our nervous system. So many of us are that sympathetic, dominant personalities of the go, 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 and never stop, pause, and reset. So we've talked a lot over the years about measuring your heart rate variability with Sweet Beat Health and other elite HRV. And there's different types of programs, apps you can get to monitor your stress level. And you want to have more variability, some more resiliency, and ability to switch sympathetic to parasympathetic and not be dominant one or the other. So I want to touch base a little bit about my book, that if you're looking for a gift for yourself for the holiday season, for someone else that may be one of those overachievers as myself, Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey, as well as the Holistic Method Manual with the workbook that's going along with my 30-day online coaching program. We work on talking about all this in those two books, and you can find them on Amazon. So I just want to go over some of my book, because as I am being interviewed more about it and talking about my story to share my journey to help other people, and why I'm becoming a health coach, and what my focus is relating to my own personal story that I wrote my book. Life is like the ocean. It can be calm or still and rough or rigid, but in the end, it's always beautiful. Unknown author of that quote. Now, I'm just going to read you the beginning of my books. I don't remember. I can't read my books or my ebooks after I write them. So I've had many editors, but I cannot go back and read them myself. So I apologize, because I know there's a lot of edits and things, but if you write, it's really hard to go back and do it yourself. I don't even look at it, and it's embarrassing. So of course, the overachiever self, Debbie, is not able to read or book or read her story or want to hear it myself from others. So it's hard as a writer, because you're looking for everyone to love it and you're afraid people are going to hate it. So it's something you just do, put out there, and if everyone enjoys it, great. If not, so be it. I'm not for them. But I thought today would be a great time to read a little bit from my book. So in the spring of 2013, I went for a long bike ride, typical of any other weekend, with my husband, Neil, and with another of our training partners. However, instead of getting a spirited, satisfying workout, I found myself crumpled over the side of the road in tears. I was weak and lethargic. My legs would not keep pedaling or working anymore. I pulled over to the shoulder and had the first of what I would soon be many meltdowns. At the time, I was the top of my age group as a strong triathlete and who was often placed top of the bike segment in a triathlon, with a reputation of competing in races around in the area as well as the annual Hawaii Ironman World Championships. A few months prior to my roadside debacle, I was in peak racing shape, lean, strong, and powerful, finishing the best triathlon season of my 12-year career. Who would ever predicted I would suddenly be overpowered with fatigue and emotions on the side of the road, especially on my bike of all things. That day, not only was I unable to continue my bike ride, but soon I began to quickly gain weight and lose muscle mass. My body was changing on the outside, even though I thought, let me change the page here. Whoops. I thought I was eating right with real food filled with healthy fats, good proteins, and low carbohydrates. I was doing all the right things and exercising the right way for triathlon training. I was known as Debbie Diesel. My friends nicknamed me that in my mastermind group I was in. I was a picture of health to everyone around me. What was going on inside my body that forced me to crawl back on my bike and just barely make it home? I didn't know what was going on. Also, I wasn't fitting into my clothes anymore. I was getting headaches from certain foods that were usually good for me, and I was feeling depressed and impatient. This wasn't me. This didn't resemble anything even in the neighborhood of me. I loved owning my own fitness studio at the time. I enjoyed working with my clients as well as training and racing in triathlons. I thought I was doing things for my health to keep me from becoming stronger. To become stronger, fitter, leaner, and faster while having fun, smiling, and laughing. I needed immediate answers and results to explain what was going on with me right now. I was on a mission to figure out why I was not able to train. I couldn't sleep or lose any weight. I had goals. I had race plans. I had scheduled commitments for the rest of that year. I didn't have any time for setbacks. But I was in for the biggest impediment of my life. How much can we push the envelope without exploding, burning out, or breaking down? I like to push myself, and I lived with the mentality of more is better. If I was going to be successful in all areas of life, more is better. Was I a perfectionist? Possibly. A type A personality? Yeah, for sure. I'd have to admit, I'm perhaps type A personality with a little ADD thrown into there. I thrive to be on a busy schedule, and I feel that I'm wasting any time if I'm not doing something all the time. I am sure you can relate to some of this addiction to being busy, as well as my monkey brain mentality. Most of us are unable to focus on one task at a time or be able to shut our mind off, especially when trying to sleep at night. Not me. Every minute of the day, we demand our body to respond and adjust to our excessive busyness or various sources of stressors. Our body doesn't know the difference between stress from a severe infection or even a death in the family to eating a poor diet or overscheduled ourselves every day. We literally overload ourselves with some type of stress from multiple sources. And then one day the body says no more, and you can no longer respond to that stressful source, toxin, event, or situation. Stress is stress. We all have a complete different capacity to tolerate various loads and levels of it. Each individual's capacity to respond to stress also varies over time per one of the experts, Dr. James Wilson, who wrote the book Adrenal Fatigue, the 21st Century Stress Syndrome. You may not do triathlons, marathons, or cycling events as myself. You may work full-time and try to balance a family, a regular life, and have lifestyle habits that include energy robbers, or you're living in a toxic environment, mold. You never know. People work, their home, their environment, all the food we eat can all be sources of stress, even good foods that you could be sensitive or reactive to. Rather than being active in your lifestyle to be healthy, these accumulators of stress, hidden stressors, external and internal, accumulate. How do we stop this horrendous cycle when we've gotten ourselves into this feels like sudden accumulation of excess stress, that we're living with chronic stressors? We've got to put more speed bumps in our day and learn how to quiet our minds, stop, pause, and reset. Like we do in our computer, push alternate control, delete, reset, and reboot. What are we teaching our children in our society to constantly be doing something, and often more than one thing at a time? Doing more is not the answer. Speeding is not allowed on certain streets or the highway. And we have speed limits to follow by law, or we get fined or just a warning. Should we not put speed limits in our own personal life and make us or force us to slow down, take a pause at that stop sign, and continue? As you'll learn from my experiences in my book, take notes along the way, because you don't want to experience what I've had happen since 2013. Speeding through each day and every activity I was doing, trying to feel that I was on the way to success. We need to find a detour when we finally get a roadblock in the path, forcing us to take an alternative direction in life. Life is not to be a race to the finish line, especially if the finish line is not only your bed at night, but rather you're driving yourself to another bed, your deathbed, if you don't stop now and pause and reset. Don't do what I've done in the past, that I kept trying different things, take one step forward, 2 steps back. I was just kept racing and didn't allow any rest and recovery time for so many years that I had no idea I wasn't doing myself any benefit. It was just the opposite. I was going through what's called the HPA axis phases of dysregulation, the hormone cortisol to DHA ratio, the progression from feeling that right amount of stress, not too much, not too little. I call it a Goldilocks effect. And we keep going. We have this stress that's not on and off like a water faucet, turning it on, turning off. Instead, it's a leaky faucet that it becomes chronic. It keeps dripping. You don't stop. So this chronic stress, you get into what's called acute phase of dysfunction in your body, leads to all sorts of health problems from the inside out. It's a domino effect. If we're living life high on a kite, going thinking we're amazing superheroes, we could be possibly in the acute phase. If you keep going, suddenly everything's high, your elevation of cortisol's high, then you suddenly break. You're in compensatory phase, where now you're not able to keep up with that demand you're placing on your body, the demand of life, your speed of life. You're in compensatory. And if you still don't stop yourself and get help, you're suddenly in the exhaustive phase, where I found myself. And that takes not just weeks to fix and repair. If you let yourself continue on to exhaustive phase, it'll take years to repair for some of you. My life was happy. I thought it was happy, satisfying, and rewarding. I loved what I was doing, and I had no regrets. But as you'll learn more about my experience I share in my book, too much of anything can become toxic, but too little of anything can create deficiencies. I call it the Goldilocks effect. Stressors don't have to feel like stress as we know it, like yelling and screaming at someone. Stress on our body is sneaky and can be hidden until one day we finally are forced to listen to those red flags and your body's calling for help and attention from the inside out. That day on my bike was my first major red flag that my body said, stop, listen. What are you doing to yourself? It was crying for attention. I want you all to take care of the whole you. That's why I call this the whole athlete. Train from the inside out. Really focus on taking care of you, not just exercising and thinking more is better. We work on the 8 elements of the holistic method, and I try to touch on those elements in this podcast, talking about nutrition, talk about exercise, but then we dive into sleep hygiene, to stress management, hidden internal stressors, talking about movement and mobility and how to do total body workouts with more flexibility and range of motion and getting outside and walking. I love to dive into gut health because our neurotransmitters and our immune system are made in the gut, most of it, and we want proper digestion function to break down our food properly. You could be eating low carb, high fat, or right for your metabolic type and your ancestry background, but are you able to break down those proteins and have proper stomach acid to get this food broken down into the next phase and get those digestive enzymes in the bile to emulsify the fat? I mean, there's so much more to our nutrient breakdown and absorption than just what we eat. As I keep saying, it's how we eat and when we eat. So we talk a lot about the fasting and time restricted eating, taking time to chew your food and focus on your meal and slow down. Be that parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system when you eat. The other area of concern for me is, practicing what I preach. I do this myself, but we're always on our cell phone. It's addicting. And so we find ourselves obsessively checking our cell phone or social media. Did anyone comment to my post I put? How many likes did I get? Always feeling this competitive need to keep up with my other coaching friends. And Danny and Robert, they have 50,000 followers and I have this many, and they have, Mike Mutzel, they put a comment video out there and they'll have thousands of likes. But the grass isn't always greener over there. I've seen those guys, what the workload they have on responding to those likes and those comments. And I realized, what? That's great to have that many people read your post and comment on it and help those people learn more. But the amount of time and that obsessiveness of checking your messages and your likes and your comments is a whole nother stressor to me. So it's not always better on the other side. Sometimes it's good where you are. You got to meet your body where it's at and meet your life where it's at. I find it especially challenging to not check the phone and just put it away and get it out of sight, out of mind. Put my phone in the back of my car when I'm driving so it's not there. And not worry about any notifications. I have everything disabled on my phone. So if I want to check a message, I have to actually click on the button to see if anyone responded. I don't want all those bells and whistles and alerts going on. So I think that's an added stressor that's going to what things I've changed, where my red flags, part of that healing and rebuilding my own self is getting rid of those bells and whistles and always being connected to my cell phone and social media, is disabling all those alerts and not being so addicted to checking in with who liked me and who did not and no one responded and feeling a sense of failure and letting that be a attack or feeling that I'm not good enough. So it's very challenging in social media. You have to not worry about it. And you also don't need to have FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I think that's a stressor for us. So more and more, I'm observing mentally how multitasked I can be and how scattered and disconnected we can be as well. So over my 25 plus years as a trainer and many years of owning a fitness studio, I've seen how people walk in the door totally exhausted, flustered, distracted, and anxious as if they're starting a race. It's because they've been running around all morning trying to fit more stuff in before I had an appointment with them. They come in just stressed out, or they've been stuck in traffic and they're all worked up. We shouldn't be living this way or teaching our kids how to live this way either. But it's become acceptable and expected, and think that's how we're supposed to operate in society. More is better mentality, and the glorification of being busy seems to be acceptable. Are we really busy, or are we just wasting too much time trying to feel or look busy? We begin to be disconnected to our own self and losing our own awareness to be in touch with what we feel, see, and experience. That's why I think doing the infrared therapy is beneficial for a lot of people, because it forces you to stop and relax. And if you don't know how to relax, you're not going to sweat. And so when people don't sweat in infrared, I know their body's too sympathetic. When I used to do the metabolic testing on people running on a treadmill or a bike, we would hook them up and measure the metabolic efficiency, where their crossover point was, and their fat burning to the carb burning. And there's a lot of people after work who were burning just carbohydrates. I couldn't get them to show any fat for the longest time. Now, what I know now, I look back and go, you know what? It's because they were in stress mode. They were sympathetic. They're coming from a busy, stressful day at work. And what I say to everybody, every stress response is a blood sugar response. So if you try to work out and you're stressed out and you want to be breaking down fat for fuel that you have stored in your own body, not because you took some ketone supplement, you possibly are going to just raise your blood sugar up because you're in that go, 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 fight or flight mode. So taking time out to reset, reboot, or work out in the morning when you're more rested and not stressed may be beneficial. So that's just a side note as I read over this book. But when a new client comes in to train with me, I usually start them out with posture movement assessment. I try to get to know their mindset, their habits, their relationship with food, any digestive systems, and kind of what's a typical day for them, and their sleep hygiene schedule and stressors and their work schedule. The information I collect is really important in helping people with what I call the holistic method approach, really working on pushing, pulling, rotation, plank exercises, squatting, lunging in my training sessions with them to work on natural movement patterns. But what I've found for many years doing this, that so many people are disconnected from their own body, partially because they're in that fight or flight. So point is, I think we've become so busy and so multitasking, we don't even know what we feel. And so when I ask people to do a lunge and try to activate their glute and push off with their glutes and not load their knee, or do a row or a push or a pull and not use their shoulders and neck, a lot of people have no idea what they're even feeling. So that started making me more aware that, are we really that disconnected from our own body? We don't know our feeling of fullness or hunger, or when we're really just thirsty, when we need to just stop and rest instead of going for a garbage workout on a run. So there's so much I've learned from my own journey that I wrote my book, and I wish I could go back and write phase 2 of my journey. Maybe someday I will, but it's exhausting to write a book. And really, it's taken me this long to finally start being able to talk about my story. And now that I just closed my fitness studio, it's a little bit easier to focus on doing this, because my business, being a small business owner, on top of training and coaching clients full time and doing multiple other projects, was way too much. And that was my major source of stress, as well as, once you read in my book, there's a lot of hidden internal stressors I had too. And it doesn't mean, what came first, we don't know. We just work on in health coaching and as an FDN practitioner, identifying the external and the hidden internal stressors with functional lab testing, and then treat everything together. And most all of us have leaky gut. Most all of us have a bunch of foods that we react to that we don't know unless we get tested. And then we also probably have some parasite or bacteria imbalance, dysbiosis in our gut and digestive issues. So I would get lab testing. We, as FDN practitioners, start with 5 main labs to test everything. And you can listen to what we do on the lab testing on my other episodes, because I've been trying to talk about each lab test recently and go into them. But that's just a few pages of my book. And as I get talking, reading about it and talking about other issues with it, I think it's something we should read and maybe share with other people, especially endurance athletes that work full time and have a family, anyone that's competitive, anyone that is just stressed out. If you're burned out and feeling broken, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help you, doesn't matter if you're an athlete or not, avoid being broken. And that's what happened to me. And my purpose, I feel, from my own experience is to help other people avoid going through this process. Get help before it's too late, because it just gets worse. And the longer you go without paying attention to healing and rebuilding the whole you from the inside out, the longer it will take to fix and repair you and bring your body back into balance, back into homeostasis, into that healthy, happy place. And it takes commitment. It takes time. It takes changing your lifestyle, taking some supplements, and following a routine and protocol for a while until you perhaps need to eradicate those bacteria. It's a 60-day protocol. We have to get retesting, make sure everything's gone. Then we move to phase 2 and working on rebuilding that gut health and the mucosal barrier and strengthening that immune system, bringing the hormones back into balance, helping the oxidative stress, the liver congestion, the fat digestion, the protein digestion. All this stuff isn't supposed to be broken as we get older. It just needs more attention, and we need to fine tune some things to bring us back to optimal health. We need to work on the mitochondria function. Things we need to supplement more as we get older is methyl B complex and glutathione and digestive enzymes and HCl. I think so many people think they don't need to take anything. Megaspore biotic, I'm a big fan of, and taking that spore-based probiotic that will add those good key strain bacteria to your gut. So there's so much to talk about, and this is why I'm doing the podcast 3 days a week, because I have so much to share with you on health coaching for the athletes and rebuilding, repairing the whole you, but also talking about how to train and when to do methadone type of max aerobic function heart rate training, when to do strength training. We need to have the Goldilocks effect in everything. Not too much, not too little, the right amount for you. So everyone asks these big questions on Facebook and the group pages. The answer always is, it depends. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Some people are fast oxidizers, slow oxidizers. Some people are more parasympathetic versus sympathetic dominance. Some people can tolerate more carbs than others and still be burning fat. It depends on your genetics, your microbiome, your history, your stressors, what's going on in your gut health, what parasite, bacteria infection, fungal infection, pathogens you may be having in there that you don't know about it. In my book, I shared I had a blasto hominis and H. pylori. I had no idea, but that was a contributor to my metabolic chaos, to my chronic stress load. Was a bug or family of bugs, bad guys, living inside of me, causing dysfunction in my other body systems. That's not the only thing though. So you don't just treat the bugs. We still have to work on everything else. So it's a lifestyle. It's a food plan that works for you. It's getting the holistic method tuned in for your body and your mind and your spirit. All right, guys, that's my rant and my share for today. If you like what you're listening to, please do me a favor. Leave a review on iTunes, because we don't show up unless we have a gazillion reviews, and I don't have many because I'm horrible at asking you for help. And I'm not very good at marketing, so if you could share my podcast with your social media friends and athletic groups, teammates, that'd be awesome, and help spread the whole athlete mission and share my passion, my purpose with other people who may be living life as a race and doing a little too much and be living with chronic stress and they don't know it. So find my book on Amazon. Look up Debbie Potts. It's easier. Or Life is Not a Race, comes up a bunch of different things, but you'll find a great poem that I love that's on there. When you look up Life is Not a Race, it's a journey. The Holistic Method is spelled WHOLE, holistic, and you can find all of that online, as well as debbiepotts.net. Lots of free ebooks. My new ebook should be out now on how to train the whole athlete to be fat adapted. So with that, have a great day. And remember, hopefully you got outside and did some movement. 10-15 minute daily exposure, especially in the wintertime. And make sure you're taking that vitamin D supplement because we don't have a lot of it. So get outside, do something fun today, and laugh. Even start laughing by yourself.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.